Hi there, welcome. This is the Kelly's Astrology podcast, where you can find insight, guidance, and understanding through astrology. I'm Kelly, and I'll be your host. Hey there, and welcome to this week's show. We are going to take a look at the astrology for the week starting November 15. So this coming week is full of planets in water signs doing fun and sometimes funky things. And we also will have the new moon in Scorpio. So in this podcast episode, I am going to be mostly talking about the new moon in Scorpio, which can't be done without also talking about Mercury cazimi, which is when Mercury retrograde will conjunct the sun. So that's part of what I'll be talking about today. That's most of what I'll be talking about today, with one little extra. Before we dive in, I wanted to let you know about my Intro to the Planets course. So in this 4-part training, you learn all about the 10 planets, how to work with them in your birth chart. You discover the characteristics and the traits of each of the planets, and you're really getting to know their condition and how they express themselves via the houses in your birth chart. So this course really helps you with essential building blocks to understand and interpret a birth chart. You'll also learn how to determine planetary strength or planetary condition, and all of this is designed to help you begin that journey to interpreting a birth chart. So if you want to deepen your understanding of the planets, if you want to build your chart interpretation skills, I hope to see you in class. Pop over to kellysastrology.com to sign up. You'll find the course under the calendar tab, or of course you can use the link in the show notes below. Okay, so back to this third week in November. So we're looking at the week starting November 15, just starting to move into the back half of the month, and that new moon in Scorpio, which is happening at 28 degrees in Scorpio, and it's Thursday, November 20th. That is New Moon Day this month, and that's the date of the new moon in most locations. Just before we dive into exploring everything that I want to tell you about the new moon in Scorpio, I do want to mention a special pattern, which is technically known as a grand trine, and that is going to form on Monday, November 17. It's going to form between the Sun in Scorpio, Jupiter in Cancer, and Saturn in Pisces. So 3 planets in water signs around the same degrees. So this is a very favorable combination. It can help with alignment and with pulling the various pieces of life or a big dream together. It's generally a supportive combination that can help you solidify and ground a situation. It can also help you deepen an existing collaboration or relationship. This grand trine pattern involving the Sun and Jupiter and Saturn is really a lovely aspect to help support agreement and cohesion, that idea of coming together, collaborating, but it also helps with making both meaningful and long-term plans. So if there's a big shift or like a major next move that you're working on in your life, this combination of planets, Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn on Monday, November 17, might bring some welcome support. It might help bring clarity around next steps, or it might be that time where you get the big tick, right, we've achieved this step along the journey. So it's a really supportive pattern, which I think is just good for you to know for Monday the 17th. So with that little extra added in, let's start looking at the rest of the week. And it's probably worth noting that this week starting November 15 has a huge amount, a much higher than usual number of astrological aspects and events happening. So with so much astro activity this week, if life feels really busy or it feels like there's a flood of developments all happening at once, that's going to be why. I've gone into detail on this inside the membership. So if you need more tips on working with the astrology of this week, you can find that via the homepage at kellysastrology.com. Of course, we'll put that link to the membership in the show notes below. It's just a really hectic week astrologically. A lot of the aspects are trines, which are considered favorable or helpful or supportive. So it's one of those weeks where it could be busy and hectic, even though you're really happy about what's going on. It's like, I've been waiting for this to happen, or I've been looking forward to this, and it's just all coming together at once. And that's where it can feel a bit intense. So the reason in a week that is so busy astrologically that I've chosen to focus on the new moon is that this new moon in Scorpio, it does look exciting. It's a very activating, stimulating, energizing new moon. You will not be bored with this new moon. This new moon in Scorpio can help reset matters. So if you need to kind of just get back on track, it can help with that. But it also has the potential to stir things up as well. And so if freedom and authenticity are important to you, this new moon has your back. Let's talk about why. So the new moon is at 28 Scorpio, and it is tightly opposed to Uranus, which is at 29 Taurus. So there's some really tight opposition between the sun and moon at 28 Scorpio and Uranus at 29 Taurus. So it's the Uranus aspect to the new moon. That's where these themes of shaking things up, of pattern breaking, and of really embracing changes that will create freedom. That's where they come from. It also means that because of the involvement of Uranus, this new moon might bring a surprise or an unexpected development. When Uranus is in the mix, we know that anything is possible and life can be a little unpredictable. The electric nature of Uranus can actually help jumpstart a stuck or stagnant situation. So if you've been frustrated with a delay, if you felt like an area of life has kind of become congested, or you feel a little bit stuck in the mud, this new moon opposite Uranus is like, whoa, it's all changing now. It's all, being shaken up. If you've been waiting to get started with something, this new moon might be a time where you are so energized or so electrically kind of activated that it's almost impossible to hold back. This new moon is very much about movement, progress, and shaking things up. That has a lot to do with Uranus, but it also has to do with another planet that we'll get to before we finish today's show. But the idea that this new moon is about pushing forward, it's about breaking away or breaking new ground, that's important to keep in mind. So Mercury is also in the mix with this new moon. And that's because at the time of the new moon, Mercury is making a really tight conjunction with the sun. So this new moon is actually kind of like a triple conjunction, which has the moon, the sun, and Mercury, who is retrograde, all at 28 Scorpio. So if you see the chart of this new moon, that's what you're looking at. Moon, sun, Mercury, 28 Scorpio. They're all kind of coming together. So this is really interesting because the moon is going through her monthly reset. She's going through her monthly cycle, which happens regularly. Every 4 weeks we have a new moon. The moon goes through her own purification and rebirth process. But at the same time this is happening this month, here's what's unusual. Mercury is undergoing one of its own periodic kind of rebirths. So Mercury is retrograde conjunct the sun 3 or 4 times a year, and that is an important rebirth for Mercury. It's very unusual to have Mercury's rebirth, retrograde conjunction of the sun, happening at the same time we have the new moon. So there's a repetition of theme here, which always intensifies the energy. So between the moon and Mercury both being conjunct the sun, which means purifying, which means renewal and release, there's a lot that's in transition. So in your life, there are multiple things, many areas of life where you feel like you are processing and digesting the past, you are resetting for the future. So this is a new moon that definitely comes with a strong signature to let go of the past and to refocus on new possibilities. Renewal and rebirth are definitely highlighted themes via this new moon. And so especially if you have old baggage that you want to release, the key here is I can't go forward until I let go of what is holding me back or what is slowing me down. And that's the purification piece. Anytime a planet is, so close to the sun, it's kind of burned up, but that fire is like a purifying ritual. And if we think about that, Mercury, our mind, our communication, our thinking can be purified and reset or cleansed right now. So that's an important piece. If you need to clear stuck thought pattern, if you've got into a bad habit with technology, with communication, with planning or thinking or organizing, this is a chance to break that bad habit and think about resetting for something new and fresh, kind of invigorating and exciting. So that's an interesting correlation to think about. The moon and Mercury, our two quickest moving planets that most influence daily life, both being reset at the same time. Now, if you've ever had to reset a piece of technology like a computer or a phone, you know that there is a period where that device is temporarily offline or unavailable while it restarts or updates. And so that may be how things show up for some of you in the 24 to 48 hours around this new moon on the 20th. You might need a short period of time where you are unavailable, you are offline, you are taking a break so that you can kind of digest or be alert to the reset that is happening deep within. So this Mercury cazimi, which is happening in the middle of Mercury retrograde, this is a really special kind of time. Mercury gets to this cazimi place around the middle of its Mercury retrograde cycle every time Mercury's retrograde. And Mercury is essentially entering the temple of the sun, which symbolically is considered to be like a source of divine wisdom. So Mercury is with the source of divine knowledge in the temple of the sun. And Mercury, as it's retrograde conjunct the sun, it is infused with wisdom and insight, kind of like getting a divine download or getting, instructions or intentions for what's next. So as Mercury is undergoing this purification and renewal process, receiving new guidance, new wisdom for the future, you too might feel like you are ready to purify and release the past so that you can catch those divine messages that are here to guide you forward. So keeping that in mind, this idea of releasing the past, purifying, letting go, whether it's physical, emotional, energetic, that's going to be an especially helpful process if there are fresh possibilities, new perspectives that you want to explore going forward. So with this new moon in Scorpio, it's influenced by both Uranus and Mercury. There really may be a lot going on in your mind, a lot of ideas, a lot of possibilities, a lot coming at you in terms of messages, requests, invitations, decisions. So schedules and plans might be in flux while you digest all the new possibilities and you make changes accordingly. So we're not leaving things as they are as this new moon rolls in. With the influence of both Uranus and Mercury, we're questioning, we're gathering updated information, and we are changing our plans or our schedules or our itineraries, our intentions accordingly. There is one other planet who is worth touching on in regards to this new moon in Scorpio, and that is Mars. At the time of this new moon, Mars is in Sagittarius, but the reason we want to look at Mars is because Mars is the ruler of the new moon in Scorpio. And so its place, wherever it is going to have some influence. So the new moon's in Scorpio, it is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in Sagittarius. So what does Mars in Sagittarius add into the mix? So Mars in Sagittarius is very wild. This is a Mars placement that is focused on freedom. It is a Mars placement that does not want to be reined in or held back. Particularly with Mars in Sagittarius, I think about wild horses, kind of unbroken, roaming free, kind of just running wild, letting their instincts drive them. And so that's part of what we're seeing with Mars and Sagittarius. There's instinct, but there's also this sense of like a more primal version of ourselves coming forward. And that can really reinforce some of those Uranus themes about independence, autonomy, and of course, freedom. So between the new moon opposite Uranus and the new moon being ruled by Mars in Sagittarius, there's lots of themes about freedom. Maybe with Mars and Sag, there's a little bit about justice or ethics or integrity or the idea of rights and responsibilities. Mars in Sagittarius is very much about like fighting for its rights, fighting to protect its rights, that kind of thing. That's very Mars and Sag. There is also this kind of wild, uncontrolled energy to Mars in Sagittarius. There's no sense that you cannot rein this Mars in. You cannot control it. You cannot direct it. It's going to want its freedom. So with this new moon in Scorpio ruled by Mars in Sagittarius, you too might crave more room to roam around in. You might want more space. You might be very aggravated or frustrated by things that you perceive are restrictive or that are holding you back. So anything that's not giving you freedom might seem like a problem under this new moon in Scorpio. It might be that you realize your current pastures, the sort of current setup or physical spaces, the territory, the geography of your life as it stands, it might start to seem a little boring or a little restrictive or a little uninteresting. And so with this new moon in Scorpio ruled by Mars in Sagittarius, you may find that you just want to go all in on pursuing a passion or chasing an adventure. That might be more important. It's like you're trying to get out of what's familiar and get into new territory. You might be more inclined to take risks, especially if you dream about living a big, bold life. Now, technically, Mars in Sagittarius doesn't make a classical aspect to the new moon in Scorpio. Mars is technically in aversion to the new moon. And so there may be something that in your pursuit of freedom, you're missing or overlooking. You might feel that you're a little bit at odds with yourself, that the new moon in Scorpio is calling your attention to one part of your chart in life, while Mars in Sagittarius is like, let's go in a totally different direction. And what that might look like is you might get caught up in a really exciting, fun, or interesting distraction. You might go on a bit of a detour because you are so excited by that you get drawn away from your intended path, at least for a little while. Mars isn't really making any tight aspects by degree, and so you might simply just enjoy a detour or want to take a sidetrack before getting back on track. I think the Mars in Sagittarius really amps up the restlessness in this new moon that we already get from the opposition from Uranus. And that idea of breaking free or breaking away or wanting to have the agency or the power to kind of choose your own path, we're going to see that a lot. We're going to be hearing stories from friends and maybe famous people, making decisions that are like, I just wanted to pursue my own path. And that's what this really feels like between the new moon with Uranus and Mars in Sagittarius. So I would love to hear from you. What house in your chart will be activated by this new moon in Scorpio? What might Mars in Sagittarius be making you very restless about or passionate around? Are you feeling those rebellious themes from Uranus via its opposition to the new moon? Or are you really tuning into the insights on offer from that Mercury cazimi? All right, team, thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back to share more again soon. Be sure to check out my website, kellysastrology.com, for more astrology in the meantime. That's it from me for now. Until next time, take care.